Meeting. It is October 17th, 2017, 9:31. Erica, could we please have the roll call?
Commissioner Henry.
Here.
Commissioner Tedesco.
Here.
Commissioner O'Dorisio.
Here.
Commissioner Hanson. Commissioner Hodge.
Here.
All right, if we could stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Commissioner O'Dorisio.
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge. Commissioner Hanson.
Aye.
Commissioner Tedesco.
Yes.
Commissioner Henry.
Yes. All right, awards and presentations. We begin this morning with the latest example of incredible collaboration between county departments. The new Pete Morales Human Service Center is officially open, and it would not be the innovative workspace and community resource it is without several county departments. This morning, we'd like to take a moment and learn more about the department and teamwork involved. Nobody poured more of their time and talent into this project than project manager Sean Braden and Deputy Director of Human Services Brian Keenan. Will Sean and Brian please come down to the podium? Two very proud people, and probably are finally sleeping. Brian, first of all, thank you for the dedication to this project. What kind of contributions do you get from your team and others in the county?
Brian Kenna, Deputy Director, Human Services. I think you asked me what kind of contributions did I get from our department, and that's a very long answer. There was a lot of participation throughout the department from our staff in terms of providing their inputs to the process. We also had a group of staff, the building users group, who was instrumental in providing information in both directions, from the project effort back to the department, as well as from the employees into the project, so we could use that input. And certainly I would mention the executive leadership team from Human Services providing input to the project throughout. Critical information that allowed us to do what we could do to build that facility.
Great. And Sean, what are some of the moments that you remember the most about this project?
Oh, they're too numerous to go through, frankly. We've had every project of this size sort of has the blood, sweat, and tears, and we've had all three of those quite literally on the job. Fortunately, mine were only paper cuts. They weren't anything more serious. But, I frankly, moments like October 5th and the grand opening, frankly, and I got to see 1,000 people there celebrating the opportunity to use a building that I will always remember in my career as having been a part of, but it's for them, it's not for me. It's not a monument to the people on the team, it was a monument to the county and the constituents. And when I see people using a building and not struggling against it, but being invited by it, that's a success and a win that I think the teamwork that we've had does exemplify. And
I personally want to thank both of you. It's and every member of the county teams involved in the human service. It was a beautiful building. It's incredible to be able to work in it. And as I was touring it, I could hear happy sounds from employees, just low chatter that just was. It felt good to be able to hear that. So thank you so much. Commissioners, any thoughts? None. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next is public comment. Erica, is there anyone signed up for public comment?
There is not.
Okay. Next, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in front of the board that is not in regards to our land use hearings that we have today? All right, I see none. All right, next is elected officials communications. Commissioners, do we have anything today? No high verbal needs. This might be a good day. All right. Do we have a motion for the consent calendar?
Madam Chair, I move for the approval of the consent calendar as presented in today's agenda.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner O'Dorisio.
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge. Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Tedesco,
Yes.
Commissioner Henry.
Yes. All right, County Manager, what do you have for us?
Good morning, Commissioners. The first item before you is a resolution approving a purchase order for the renewal of licenses and maintenance from Oracle America, Inc. for the J.D. Edwards software system. And I believe Brian Dobbins from ITI will be here to present this item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Dobbins with the ITI Department. This agenda is just a standard annual software renewal for our J.D. Edwards Enterprise One software. Enterprise One is our ERP system here at the county, and so it houses the core business processes for accounting, accounts receivable, accounts payable, human resources, payroll, purchasing, and budgeting.
Okay, do we have any questions? I see none. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that resolution approving the purchase order for the renewal of licenses and maintenance from Oracle America, Inc. for the J.D. Edwards software system be approved as presented.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Tedesco,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge, Commissioner Odericio,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Henry.
Yes. Right, thank you. What else do you have for us?
The last item before you is a resolution awarding an agreement to Showco Sam Hill Oil, Inc. for fuel services, and Director Jeff Bowman will be presenting this item.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Jeff Bowman, Facilities and Fleet Director. This morning, we're asking that the Board of County Commissioners approves a proposal award to Showco Sam Hill Oil Incorporated for fuel services. The agenda item for those not here is available on the county website, and of course it outlines the RFP process, the dates, the pricing, and how we came to this recommendation. For a little additional background information that may help you in supporting and making a decision, I'd like to, from a fleet perspective, add some items. Working with Showco, they're working in the fleet field. There are really 4 or 5 major items related to fleet and fleet fuel. If you were to line up 10 fleet managers and ask what their most difficult challenge is, it's fuel. And we are very fortunate to be able to partner with a provider like Showco. One of the things that we can count on each time is the fuel quality. We've never had issues in my almost 2 years here with the county, so that means they've maintained their tanks. They do an excellent job. Fuel availability has always been prime delivery point for them. They're open 24/7, and in the event, and there has been an event of a power down in their fuel sites, they have backup generators. Pricing, of course, is a big item when it comes to fuel for everyone. And just as a reference, today's fuel pricing is $1.89 for no lead fuel, and winter blend diesel we are paying $2.06. So our previous contract that's been in place for 3 years, we were paying 4.5 cents per gallon for diesel and no lead fuel above the OPIS pricing. Their new proposal to us, they've dropped that from 4.5 cents down to 3.5 cents, which is, when you're buying as much fuel as we buy, that's over 20% reduction. So we're very pleased with that. Probably one of the most important pieces for us in the fleet world is they have an interface system, and each time a county employee goes to get fuel, they have what they call card lock. And when they go in, they pull up, this system tracks the location where they're fueling, the date and the time, the pump, the fuel type, the vehicle number, the driver's name, and the mileage. So there's a huge accountability piece that we're able to track at Fleet. And it generates record keeping, obviously, for mileage reports and for operational costs for our equipment. But more than that, and one of the huge pieces for us is the way it interfaces, we're able to use that daily or that weekly download of fuel mileage to be able to go out and schedule our preventive maintenances. And that way we stay ahead. We're not doing after repairs. So that combination of additional value that beyond what you see in the agenda item before you, some, I think, very important items, and Shoco's been a great county partner for the last year and a half that I've been here. So are there any questions?
Commissioners, do you have any questions? I actually do. So how many years have we been using them?
I don't know for sure. They've been in business in the county since 1950. I would say, I know it's more than 10 years that we've used them.
And have we received any other bids from any other?
We have in
facilities?
years past, my understanding, but we did not this time.
Do you think the reason why we're not receiving any bids is because it's known out there in the world that we're not going to be looking for anybody new?
There are other fuel providers in the region, and part of that, when they provide that, they also have a fuel card system at many locations. The nearest other location would probably be in Arvada, and that would be a competing company.
So we don't have any fueling system on site for ourselves then?
No, that's not true. We have at the individual blade stations, we have small tanks. At Whittier, which is the central site for Public Works, there is a diesel tank there. And then in our Strasburg location, we have two 12,000-gallon diesel tanks and a 6,000-gallon no-lead tank that are ours, and they come out and provide fuel for those. But we have an internal fuel delivery system that we track through there. But for the majority of our fueling, it's a proximity location, and I think maybe that's what you're asking. In Brighton, for most of the services here, vehicles in this location, and then down on 74th near Dahlia is the other major location. So it is a proximity thing that they're able to provide that. But we do not have major fuel tanks at the Commerce City location.
So we're basically not able to meet the needs that we have as a fleet on our own site. Am I right?
We do not provide our own fuel services.
Are we
correct?
the only county that does that in the metropolitan area?
I don't know that answer.
Okay. All right, commissioners, do you have any other questions? Okay, I see none. Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that the resolution awarding agreement to Shoco Sam Hill Oil, Inc. for fuel service be approved as presented.
Do I have a second? Mary seconded.
Commissioner Tedesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge? Commissioner Odericio? Commissioner Hanson?
Aye.
Commissioner Henry?
Yes, and Commissioner Odericio, you wanted to make a statement?
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that everything that you told us, and I don't have any question about the integrity of where we are on any of this, but if there's a way to try to promote some competition in the next cycle, I think it's important, because we're getting to a point where when we only have one vendor respond to anything, I always get a little nervous. I think competition is good for the taxpayers, so.
Perception is
understand.
everything.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do you have anything else for us, County Manager?
No other items.
All right, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do a 5-minute recess and then go into our public hearing, or public land use hearing. Up there.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
I'm just prepared.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and start our land use hearing? What do you got for us?
All right. Hi, Greg Barnes with Community Economic Development Department. And today I'd like to talk to you about a rezoning application. The title of the case is Front Range RV Storage, case number RCU 2017-00030. The request would change the zoning designation on a property from Agricultural 3, or A3, to Industrial 1, I1 zoning. The request was submitted by Mr. Jeff Hopkins, and Mr. Hopkins ultimately wants to utilize this property for recreational vehicle storage. The property is 40 acres in size, and his plan would be to utilize 15 acres of that for the use. Larger picture, to give you some context of where the site is, The Amazon Distribution Center and Prologis site are located far in the western edges of Adams County. Denver International Airport and Front Range Airport are here and here. And the subject property would be located here, which is just west of the town of Bennett. For a closer scale, the property has frontage on Manila Road, which is an arterial roadway. And this site has excellent transportation access to federal and state highway systems. State Highway 36 is located just to the north by about a half mile. And the on and off ramps for Manila Road to I-70 are located about a half mile to the south. As I mentioned, the property is zoned A3, and ultimately this request would introduce I-1 zoning into the area. I-1 zoning does allow for agricultural uses, but the county's comprehensive plan has designated a future land use of mixed-use employment in the area largely. So ultimately, an I-1 zone would be consistent with the county's long-term goals in the area. Mixed-use employment generally is large employment centers like an office park or warehousing. The county's development standards does list specific criteria for approval of rezoning. This includes consistency with the county's comprehensive plan, additionally consistency with the purpose of the development standards, as well as compliance with the actual standards for the district, and whether the use is harmonious or compatible with the general area. The I-1 zone district has a minimum lot size of 1 acre. This site, as I mentioned, is 40 acres. Minimum lot width required in the I-1 is 100 feet, and this property has 660 feet of frontage along Manila Road. Additionally, the minimum setbacks in the area would not be an encumbrance to development on this site because it's so large. So taking a look at the general area, this is the site. It is vacant. Off in the distance, you can see a couple of single-family homes and an accessory structure. These properties all have frontage on Kavanaugh Road, which is the road parallel to the west of the site, and the closest structure is over 2,500 feet from the frontage along Manila Road. This is looking to the east across Manila Road. The property is utilized for farming. To the north, those properties are all vacant, looking toward State Highway 36, which is just over the horizon. And to the south, I-70 overpass on Manila Road is approximately right here. There are 2 single-family dwellings that utilize their properties for farming in this area, and those are the only 2 dwellings that have that use this stretch of Manila Road for access. On June 7th, the applicant held a neighborhood meeting, which 5 property owners in the area attended. He received no objections to his request. Staff notified 25 property owners within a half mile during the referral period. We received 2 comments, and both of those comments were from property owners located north of the site, and they both supported the request. We sent the referral to several agencies outside of the county, and we did not receive any objections from any of those referral agencies either. And so in summary, this request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's compliant with the development standards for the district. And in addition, in terms of compatibility, there are not many uses in the area that are already established. And on a larger scale, the county has a need for RV storage, and the request could reduce the number of variances and zoning violations in the county as a whole. During the Planning Commission hearing on September 28th, Planning Commission members evaluated the case. They did discuss the design of the RV storage with Mr. Hopkins, and Mr. Hopkins stated that he would have a high dedication to creating an aesthetically pleasing site. Additionally, there was some discussion about mixed-use employment, and ultimately the Planning Commission members felt that this could be a good segue into introducing industrial designations in the area. So therefore, staff and the Planning Commission is recommending approval of the rezoning with 4 findings of fact. Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any question for staff? I see none. Would the applicant like to come forward and state your name and address, please?
Hi, good morning. Jeff Hopkins, 6159 South Kincaid Street, Bennett, Colorado, 80102.
Do you have any statements, or are you?
You know, I guess the first thing I would say is I really want to thank Greg, for the opportunity to work with him. It's been quite a process. I'm not a developer. But Greg has been great to work with to get to this point, and also very appreciative of the county for their approvals to get to this juncture. One thing I would add is that I think it's important to note, too, that the property is unique in that over 80% of the site lies within the airport influence zone, including restriction area 1 and 2. So the opportunity to develop a property such as this, that window becomes very, very small, and we feel that we're bringing forward a development that meets that niche, as well as providing an amenity to the community. As we all know, Eastern Adams County continues to grow rather rapidly, and so we feel like we're going to be filling that void. And again, very, very challenging due to restrictions in that area, and we feel like we have satisfied all of those.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? I see none. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward and speak in regards to the Front Range RV storage rezoning? Is there anyone signed up, Erica?
There is not.
All right. Well, I see none. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move for the approval of a rezoning RCU 2017-30 Front Range RV storage with 4 findings of fact.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner O'Dorisio?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge?
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson?
Aye.
Commissioner Tedesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Henry?
Yes. All right. Thank you. Next.
Thank you. The next project that we have is the Boardwalk Pipeline projects. There are 3 separate cases. I'm going to present them all together in one PowerPoint presentation in the interest of time, and since they are so interrelated. So it includes 3 cases: RCU 2017-11, RCU 2017-17, and RCU 2017-19. So these are 3 separate requests for separate conditional use permits for oil and gas pipeline segments. Each segment will include a natural gas, crude oil, and produced water pipeline, except for case RCU 2017 and 11. It will only contain natural gas, crude oil and water pipeline. It also includes a development agreement that covers pre-construction requirements, construction and operational standards, and maintenance of the pipeline. So the applicant is Discovery DJ Services. It's a joint venture between Discovery Midstream Partners and Ward Petroleum Corporation. The pipeline system itself, each segment will include a 20-inch natural gas pipeline, an 8.625-inch crude oil pipeline, and a 12.75-inch produced liquids or water pipeline. There would be 2 above-ground structures that I'll show on the site plan, one at the midpoint and then one at the Riverdale facility. It'll consist of where the pipe comes out of the ground, and they can insert testing equipment. It's called a pig launcher to test the integrity of the pipeline. So the benefits towards the pipeline is that it gathers resources from well pad sites throughout the county. It would reduce truck traffic and emissions. It would also reduce on-site storage at the well pad sites themselves, making them look less industrial in nature. Here are the 3 pipelines. They're designated, you can see, with blue, yellow, and pink, and they're each labeled 2017, 11, 17, and 19. So I'll start over on the west side. The yellow pipeline route starts on the proposed Ivy well pad site. It starts on private property there. It'll proceed then into E470, into what they call the multiple use easement, or MUE. So that's contained all within the E470 right-of-way. And it comes over here to the center point, which is called the Brighton West Interconnect. This is one location where the pipe will come out of the ground where the testing equipment can be inserted. This segment of the pipeline then will contain crude oil and water. It starts from the Brighton West Interconnect. It also proceeds along the MUE, the E470 multiple use easement. It's entirely contained in that section, all the way down here to the northwest corner of Riverdale and E470. And it ends on a piece of property that's county-owned. This is the second location where the pipe would come out of the ground, where the testing equipment could be inserted. Overall, you can see that most of the property that the pipeline impacts is vacant or used for agricultural purposes. And again, the yellow and the blue primarily are within the MUE. The pink pipeline does stay along property edges on these agricultural areas. It's outside of all future road right-of-ways, including Highway 7, for future expansion. And it does head north here at Quebec Street into Weld County. So this map shows the pipeline segments. It shows some of the oil and gas activity in the area. The red dots that you see on the map are existing oil and gas well facilities that potentially could then hook up to the pipeline system. The purple dots that you see are oil and gas wells that are in the county permitting process that we're currently reviewing. And this green dot are potential oil and gas well sites that we know people have expressed interest in. They'll still have to go through permitting processing with the county. So all of these then could potentially hook up to the pipeline. So overall, this map is intended to show you kind of how everything hooks together. Over here are our 3 pipelines that we're hearing today, the yellow, the blue, and the pink pipeline. And it ends over here at the Riverdale Interconnect. This is at Riverdale and E470. So between this location and this pink or purple star that you see, this was previously the Central Delivery Point facility. It's like a small gas processing plant. And then the red line that you see is a crude oil, produced liquids, and natural gas pipeline that this board previously approved. And so this is actually already constructed, the CDP facility, and the pipeline. But basically, these pipeline segments connect over here with the CDP facility through well interconnects that are reviewed by the county through our oil and gas MOU process. And they'll connect over here and then proceed in a south-east direction over to Powhatan Road, where it'll then head north into Weld County for processing. So that shows the interconnectivity between the 3 cases we're hearing today and the previous case that we had heard a while back. This is the zoning map for the 3 segments in the area. You can see that the yellow pipeline starts in an A3 zoned property, and then it proceeds in the MUE, multiple use easement. The blue pipeline is, the majority of it's actually in the city of Thornton, and that'll be reviewed through construction permitting processes, sort of administrative type permit through the city. But it does end on residential estate zone property here that's owned by the county, that's slated for potential future drainage improvements. As you know, we do development agreements with oil and gas operators, and there's language that contained in that one that says if and when we do the drainage improvements, the applicant would be responsible for moving, relocating the infrastructure that they're putting in there. So in terms of the pink pipeline, it impacts the most private properties. They're mostly A3 that you can see in south of Highway 7, and then it'll proceed north on the east side of Quebec. This is in the Todd Creek Village PUD. This section is only a preliminary PUD. There's no final plat or final PUD in this location. It is located on the future road right-of-way, and when this develops, we can easily accommodate development in relation to this proposed pipeline. Whoops. So this map is, I recognize it's a little bit busy, but it does show our 3 pipelines, the yellow one, the blue pipeline, this green line you see is E470, and the pink pipeline. This shows the variety of the future land use designations. It starts on this mixed-use employment area, but again, it's snugged up close to property lines so that the majority of the property could be developed in the future. And within the E470 MUE multiple use easement for the yellow and blue pipeline, it does go by a variety of different future land use designations, but it doesn't directly impact them since it doesn't go through them. So it's not going to restrict the ability of these parcels to develop in the future. It won't impede their development. Likewise, the pink one does impact mixed-use neighborhood and residential estate, but as I previously had said, all of it's outside of future road right-of-way. It's near parcel edges to make sure that the remainder or vast majority of the parcels can develop into the future. It's also important to note that the pipeline reduces truck and emissions. It reduces the storage related to well pad sites, so that further allows development of these areas a little bit better in terms of when you don't have those well pad sites that look quite as industrial. In terms of development standards and regulations, oil and gas pipelines are overseen by federal, state, and local regulations. And locally, in terms of what we review, we have a process called the Memorandum of Understanding. That's for oil and gas development, and it's for well connects that are 10 inches and less in diameter for the pipeline or 2 miles or less in length. Other pipelines and infrastructure require a conditional use permit. So some of these pipelines exceed the 10-inch requirement, and they definitely exceed the 2-mile length. So that's why we're hearing them as the conditional use permit. We also include information from our areas and activities of state interest permits because these do impact such large areas. They include studies on financial burdens, local government impacts, environmental impacts, alternative routes analysis. And as I had previously mentioned, we do development agreements. Each one of the pipeline segments has its own separate development agreement. It requires compliance with federal safety standards and engineering codes, covers a multiple variety of requirements like pre-construction, referral agencies, standards of construction, operational standards, ongoing maintenance of the pipeline. It also includes some other safety requirements like a 48-inch minimum burial depth, which exceeds the federal requirement. It includes pipe thickness requirements, as-built final designs, stormwater protections. They have to maintain and repair any roadways or any damage to county infrastructure and restore all surfaces to a similar condition as they previously existed. We have 8 criteria that we review for conditional use permit approval. All 8 of them are listed here. It includes being permitted in the zone district, functional layout, site plan, compatible with the area, no detrimental effects. We also include 25 more criteria from our areas and activities of state interest permit. I didn't list them all, but kind of the highlight is does a natural hazards review, financial impacts, environmental, cultural resources review. In terms of our development comments, development services, engineering, right-of-way had general comments about making sure they get all their construction permits, repair any damaged infrastructure, water quality, avoid drainage improvements, and make sure that it's outside of any future rights-of-way for any of the roads or state highways in the area. And referral agencies submitted general comments that are addressed in the development agreement. In terms of the property owners that we notified people within 500 feet of each side of the pipeline alignments. That was a total of 550 properties. We received 1 letter in opposition and 3 in total in support. The 3 that were in support were on the blue segment, the yellow segment, and the 1 in opposition was the pink segment. And they had some concerns about general safety, impacts to their water wells, that kind of thing. So here are a variety of pictures of different segments of the pipeline. It starts on the west end over here near the proposed Ivy well pad site. This is the yellow alignment looking east on 152nd Avenue. So it starts north of 152nd over here. This is looking west then on 152nd Avenue. This is looking north from 152nd, looking into the proposed Ivy pad site. IV 470 labeled there, so it'll proceed into the MUE, the multiple use easement, and then the blue and the yellow pipeline follow that MUE for the majority of their routes. This picture is taken at Colorado Boulevard, which is basically just west of the Brighton Interconnect site, and this is looking west at E470. That's looking east from Colorado Boulevard, looking back towards E470. Somewhere in this location is where the Brighton West Interconnection site will be, where the pipeline will surface, and that's where the testing equipment can be inserted. So these are pictures looking at the north end of the pink pipeline along 168th. So this is looking east. North of 168th, that's in Weld County. That's looking west on 168th Avenue. That's looking south on Quebec. The pipeline would be located on the east side of Quebec over on this agricultural area. Keeps it away from the developed side over here on the west side of Quebec. And finally, these last pictures are taken at the Riverdale facility. This is looking south at Riverdale Road and E470. That's looking north. That's looking west from the Riverdale Road site. That's the county-owned parcel where the pipe, again, second location where it would come out of the ground and the testing equipment could be inserted. So the Planning Commission heard this case on September 28th. They recommended unanimous approval. We had no concerns expressed from the applicant or the Planning Commission. We had no citizen testimony presented on these cases at that hearing. In terms of our recommendation, the request is consistent with the surrounding areas, our comprehensive plan, development standards and regulations, our areas and activities of state interest findings. And staff's recommending approval. Originally it was based on 33 findings of fact and 2 conditions. You can delete condition number 1, So now we're recommending approval of 33 findings and one condition. I do have the signed, executed development agreements here today. So the only condition we have is that they comply with the terms of the development agreements. That will conclude the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner O'Dorisio.
Yeah, I look on, in our packets, page 34 of 65, there's a letter here from the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District, and it specifically says that this proposed alignment could have an impact on major drainage ways. What have we done to address their implied concern?
So one thing we have done is to make sure that they're similar to the road right-of-ways, how they can't create any impacts to the road right-of-ways. They can't cause any long-term or permanent impacts to any drainage facilities. They've agreed to avoid those. Those requirements are included in the development agreement as well. I'd mention that endpoint that the county has for county-owned property at the Riverdale Road site, when we do develop that, the applicant will be required to relocate their infrastructure to make sure that any of our interests are ahead of the applicants in terms of those drainage improvements.
Okay, but specifically, they talk about Morse Creek, South Morse Creek, and Elms Run.
I may have engineering discuss that a little bit, and I'll look up a couple things here. I do know that the development agreement does require that they avoid those drainage impacts, and I'll look that up here.
Good morning, Craig LeBrie, Community Economic and Development Department. The developer or the applicant is required, we provide him the urban drainage flood hazard studies that we have adopted as part of our standards, and they were required to review those studies and ensure that the installation of the pipe and would not impact any future growth in the drainage facility. So that was one of the requirements that they had to meet per the design as well as in the development agreement.
So in their letter, they specifically asked to participate or look at the review. Did we get an updated letter from them? Have I not gotten far enough in the packet? Or is there not another update from Urban Drainage saying that the concerns that they expressed have been addressed?
I don't know if we received that letter. Typically, that's one of our requirements, and that's what we've done. It's part of our review in development engineering is to ensure that they do not impact those drainage facilities. I think that's a standard comment that Urban Drainage make when we refer it out to them. But again, that's something we do internally as part of our regular review process.
I'll let you guys keep looking. I don't think the question has been answered unless, and we have a member of Urban Drainage that if he's got some insight onto this kind of question, if I'm going down the wrong path, you can let me know, but it's something from a letter from that organization. And
I think Madam Chair.
Yeah, by all means, Commissioner Tedesco.
So, I know we look alike.
Yeah, O'Dorisio, Tedesco, you guys, you know.
I think you're asking the appropriate questions. I will say that Urban Drainage, that is a standard answer pretty much to everything that they do. They just want to make sure that they're being addressed and I think the reason they specifically called out those creeks is because they're within the parameters of what's being presented today. They asked that question as a standard ask across the board, and we've addressed that before with other pipelines. We've also addressed, there's some, artifact or historical sites that we have to address, and I think they have pretty much a standard language also. But I think you're asking the right questions. Is this going to be an impact to those, drainage areas? And I think what they're saying, and I'm not going to answer for them because I think what they said is to us is that is in part of their criteria for approving this when they put this in, that it does not long-term impact the drainages in those areas. So I think they've addressed it. I appreciate the questions because I think you're asking the right questions.
I also wanted to follow up in terms of specifically addressing the urban drainage comments. I know the applicant has been in contact with them. We have specifically included acknowledging and working with urban drainage as part of the development agreement to ensure that those requirements are met. But again, I emphasize that the interest in terms of drainage improvements would come first, and that's the way we structured these development agreements to make sure that if there are any future impacts, if we're going to do any of those development improvements, that those pipeline infrastructure would have to be relocated to make sure if they're a problem. But the whole point of their planning was to avoid all those future impacts.
All right.
I
Commissioner
appreciate it. I feel like I'm getting, we always address it. I just don't know where it says that, no problem. What we've looked at the plans and it sounds like it's good now. That's all I'm saying. So that's all I'm asking. I don't want to ignore agency comments. That's all.
Okay, it sounds like
I'm just going to step in also and add, it looks like Matt Evans also has another thing to add, but looking at the referral comment, I think it particularly relates to the review of the construction plans, which is still a future opportunity that does exist because we're making a land use decision today on the location, but we have not entered in the construction plan review stage for the actual pipeline.
There's also two specific points in the development agreement that address that for RCU 2017-19. That's the pink pipeline. It's in pre-construction activities, section 1, letter I, that acknowledges the urban drainage flood control district. I was trying to find also the section for future drainage ways. It's under construction activities. I haven't located the exact letter, but it's definitely located in there.
I do see that on the agreement, and I appreciate that, because it does say that they will continue to work with the agency pursuant to that letter. So that's a good thing, because now we have contractually required them to continue working with the agency. That does provide some level of comfort.
Hi, Matt Emmons with Community and Economic Development. I just want to add, when they do their design and we review their construction plans, we do make them go deeper through the drainage ways so that they're not affecting the ground surface. It is something we watch out for, and Commissioner Tedesco is correct. This is a very standard comment they make. So it's something we watch for and we're aware of. But the specific drainage ways we will watch, we'll make them bore those areas instead of actually open cut, and make them go deeper so that if we ever do any drainage improvements in that area, that their pipeline is well below any impacts that we're going to be having in that area. If that helps your answer.
And just to piggyback and follow up on that, also in the development agreement for RCU 2017-19 under design requirements, so it's number 3, letter B, paragraph 2, it talks about that it will avoid drainage they're not anticipating any impacts, but if projects occur in the area of the approved pipeline alignment, developer agrees to avoid any of these drainage improvements. And there's some other language that talks about acknowledging that as well, in addition to what Matt just testified. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. I see none. Would the applicant like to come forward? Yeah, you guys are going the wrong way. I said forward, not out. They're running out. And this is nothing compared to what we'll have later. Okay. And then if you could state your name and address, it'd be awesome, and speak at is that good, guys? Yeah? Okay. We can see it. Wow.
Can you see it? Corey Jordan, Discovery Midstream Partners, 7859 Walnut Hill, Suite 335, Dallas, Texas, 75230.
By all means, proceed.
All right, thanks. So put the map up first this time as opposed to the Planning Commission. But we have a short presentation here. Go over a little bit about who we are again. Some of y'all have heard this before, but for public record, who we are, what we're doing, the project, and also talk a lot about safety and our safety record, and a little bit about the project as well. And then y'all can ask me any questions y'all want to at the end. So, and hopefully I keep up with the clicker this time too. So as I said, I'm with Discovery DJ Services, Chief Operating Officer. A little summary of our presentation. We have a company overview. Then I want to kind of skip over that a little bit and get into safety, the project, and a little bit what we do with the community. So the company overview, our local team, we have 2 offices here. We have one in Brighton for our construction and right-of-way and environmental. We also have an office in Frederick for our operations team. Both those offices are kind of moving addresses right now because they keep growing. So the one in Brighton, we're moving to a 7,000 square foot office here now. They're just outside downtown. All of our employees, over 90% of our employees to date have been Colorado hires. Our director of operations is from Colorado. Our engineering staff is all from Colorado School of the Mines, Monty Miller. We also hire local engineering firms. Right now we have Zion Engineering and Samuels and a few others here out of the Denver area as well. And all of our contractors to date have been from this area. They've been building our pipelines in Weldon and Adams County, as y'all probably know about. Our management team, including myself, we're based out of Dallas. Been in business for about 8 years. I've been working here in Colorado on this project for about 2. This is the only project we are working on right now as it's grown. As y'all know, we were here last year for permits, and here we are again, finishing up the pipeline end of it. We've built thousands of miles of pipe. I myself have done stuff on the western slope, Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, different places, New Mexico. We've done lots of projects around, anywhere from 2-inch to 42-inch projects, including pipelines, plants, compressor stations, anything pretty much in the oil and gas industry. What we're really proud of is our zero incident safety record. I myself sent an EPA audit a couple of years ago in which we actually had 0 violations, no OSHA violations. We just got through with a PHMSA audit, which is Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, that we just got audited here in Weld County last month. And in fact, we got really commended on the fact that our record keeping was impeccable. So we're really proud of that as well. Very well capitalized to handle all of our commitments. And as I said before, this is the only project that we're focused on right now. So going into safety a little further. So all of our pipelines are made of steel, 4 feet deep, which Code of Federal Regulations, DOT 192 and 195 both state 3 feet. Minimum, we do 4 feet. Road crossings were more than 5 feet, most of the time more than 10 feet deep. We use domestic pipe. We use stronger, thicker grade of steel than we're required to. We x-ray 100% of our wells, whereas the DOT 192, 195 standard is 10%. All of our pipe is coated. And during the construction process that we do, the pipe that comes from the mill, if there's any damage to that coating before it goes in the ground, that coating is repaired and tested to make sure the whole pipe has got a good strong coating on it. Cathodic protection as well. And like I said before, I touched on a little bit earlier, the recent PHMSA audit, we passed with flying colors. A little bit about our operations. All of our system will be monitored 24/7, 365 every day, every minute, both by local and remote control centers. All of our operators and contractors are certified by Veriforce, which is a national organization many companies use. We have written safety management plans, monthly training. We have monthly training programs. And the big thing that I'm really, one of my biggest things that I have is a stop work. And that's huge for us because that means everybody, whether it's a direct hire or a contractor, anybody on the project has the responsibility, not just the authority, but the responsibility to shut down the project and make sure that what's going on is safe if they feel that some part of that issue is unsafe. And so we sit down and talk about it and do PSSRs, which are pre-safety startup reviews. And then once everybody's signed off on that and feels good again, the work will then begin. We have leak detection systems that are monitored with block valves strategically placed across the system. All of our pipelines are piggable, which is a big thing. I can go on a little bit about that. We were talking about testing equipment, but those are our pigging. That's how we get in and out of the pipelines, I guess, with pigs, which are, well, not real pigs, but, the plastic bodied, there's different kinds that we can also do the pigs where you can go in and x-ray the internal pipe and see every year, every 5 years. You have to do that, I believe, by DOT 195. And so we're also part of the one call system. and we had call before you dig. All of our maps are up to date. We have sub-meter GPS markings before these lines go on the ground. Everybody knows exactly where they are. That's shared with federal, state, and local authorities. We've had some recent meetings on site with up in Weld County, up with the different fire departments, just going through procedures of how, if there was an emergency, how that's handled. So now the project overview, y'all can see that fairly well, I'm assuming. So right now we've had about 20 miles permitted and in service. The lines went into service. The 12-inch line that goes out east from the CDP on 136 and 85 that y'all are aware of, that was put in service roughly 1st of September, I believe, mid-September. The oil line that was built as part of that initial is not in service yet. That will be, we're finishing up a bunch of construction actually at the northern end of Adams County and into Weld County. That oil system will be in service within 4 to 6 weeks, maybe sooner than that, but before Thanksgiving for sure. So now I can kind of show you from the map. Can y'all hear me if I stand up here? Is that okay? Let me just carry this mic a little bit over here.
Sure.
Kind of explain where I'm talking about instead of just rambling on. So roughly the oil line here, we stopped it here with the first permit phase last year. We got the extension, I believe, this summer, and we're finishing up construction on it. And then in Weld County here, all this going up into Platteville is pretty much ready for service right now. We're finishing up the interconnect with the same group up there around Magellan and White Cliffs area. All that oil goes to different regional markets. But this whole oil system should be in service by, like I said, before Thanksgiving. The 12-inch gas line is now in service going into our gas plant there in Weld County. So that's operational. And so what we're here for today is all this western side in which we have the Ivy Well here. You got the Riverdale here, as Chris was talking about. Both these come together and gas is moving up, heading in this direction into our processing facilities in Weld County. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions y'all have on all this. So we got all of our permits in Weld County for our pipelines approved October 5th, and we're moving into the construction phase right now on that. And this is the second deal coming into Adams County, getting this product off the oil off the roads and the gas up into our processing facility. So we'll transfer the natural gas, as I stated, to the gas plant in Weld County. The crude will also move into the northwest, or actually up to Platteville, into third-party regional markets. There's the map of what we've been talking about. Ivy being, and I'm colorblind, I'm not going to try to attempt the colors, but in the far western edge there is the Ivy. The farther east side is Riverdale on up into Weld County and connecting into the pipelines that we're building right now. How we plan a pipeline project, many factors come into play. Not only just the landowner, environmental impacts, where are their well pads, that's a big deal, that we're trying to do this one and done type mentality. Talking to the producers, talking to our customers that we have now, and trying to go by the pads that are permitted and their future are in progress of permitting, so we can do this one time and also keep the impact of future development to a minimum. Y'all seen our preferred route, so a little bit of benefits about pipelines. More than 2.7 million miles of energy pipelines that crisscross the United States. COGCC says that pipelines reduce 90% of the truck traffic over the life of a well. And the big key things is noise, trucks on the road, damage to the road, dust, and reducing footprints for these well pads as well. Emission sources, which that also reduces emission sources. And one of the things we're really proud of, too, we work closely with the landowners to restore the land to its original state or better. And we kind of do that case by case, depending on the landowner, what they want. We call what we call a line list. And we keep up during the phase of the project, and at the end of the day, do what they want us to with their land. So really ask you guys and ladies to go out there and look east of town and what we built so far, and hopefully everybody's really pleased on how we marked the line with pipeline markers, how we restored and reclaimed all the right-of-ways. Touch briefly here in the last here on being a good neighbor. I mean, we believe in volunteering and supporting 4-H, FFA, Boys and Girls Club, different organizations. We're doing that right now. Good economic partners. We pay our bills. We have great backing financially that we keep up with our commitments. Lots of jobs, lots of tax revenue, lots of payments to local landowners, lots of jobs with the construction side, lots of jobs with operations and engineering that we've been through, and environmental. And like I stated in the very beginning, we hire locally. Over 90% of our hires to date have been local. And that's all I have.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner O'Dorisio.
I see that we're dealing with the yellow and the red line, pink line today, along with the blue. Is this the pipeline that any of the oil and gas development east of I-25 over in Broomfield is going to eventually connect to?
We have no plans of that right now. No, I mean, there's possibly, we're talking to everybody that we can, but there's no plans of that as of right now.
I have a question for staff. Is that the pipeline that we've seen being proposed over in that location? Is that a different pipeline, or are they assuming that they will eventually connect to this one?
Let me ask you.
Yeah, I don't
let
think
me
there's
ask for
any planned
clarification.
connections.
Which oil lines are you talking about?
Action Oil and Gas plans in the city and county of Broomfield, and they're showing pipelines gathering the products from the wells planned inside the city of Broomfield. And as far as we know, there's no planned connection between that system and this system.
That's correct.
So they're either different systems or, okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner Tedesco?
So I want to ask a question, but I want to answer because I asked that specific question, and there is no plans for Extraction to join with this pipeline. And I asked that specific question. They're separate entities. Right now, there's no specific plans to join those two or use the two. My other question for you, though, is that, when you talk about putting this pipeline in, you are basically a service provider. You're providing the route that the oil can take other than, being used through trucks or any of that for the specific wells in the area. Can you tell me right now what the truck traffic generation right now is and what this would save?
Honestly, not off the top of my head. I mean,
I didn't know
we
that
can do
you
some.
would,
Yeah,
but-
we can do some research and let you know. But I mean, some of these wells are 3,000, 4,000 barrels a day. So you can do the math on how much a truck can handle. And I'm assuming 100 barrels a day for a truck, possibly just doing some round numbers. So that's 30 trucks per well. So that's
I didn't know that
significant.
you would because, you're not in control of the wells that are out there right now. They'll be contracting with you to utilize your pipeline.
That's correct. And so
but-
let me clarify right now, too. We have a contract. Our customer right now is Ward Petroleum and also Great Western. We have a contract with them, too. We're actively discussing future plans with many, many other producers in the area.
Right, okay. Does staff have any idea of what that would, I would have thought that would have been one of the points.
So for those that we are processing applications, we could give you real numbers. There is, of course, a pending application for the proposed Ivy well pad site. There's also a pending application for one of the Great Western sites. And then I'll just ask my oil and gas team to come up and mention any other proposed or pending well pad sites that are displayed on this map here. I mean, it's a very significant number. I'd have to gather with them to pull those
And I
numbers.
appreciate that. The reason I ask is because, when we talk about pipelines, especially through our communities like this, we want to make sure we're addressing an issue that is, a lot of the wells that you're going to be servicing are currently in production.
Correct.
And although some of the well sites may be being proposed to be increased, it's important to know what we're gaining out of this with this pipeline and putting it in. I know what you gain. It's a, investment for you. And I appreciate what you're doing. And I appreciate pipelines in general because if I had my druthers, it would be a pipeline. So I appreciate that. I just would have liked to have heard that specific kind of information to kind of justify.
And we can get that, and just so, I mean, going back to what I said, I mean, just assuming from high-level math, you know, one of these wells is producing, I think some of them right now are producing around 1,000 barrels up to 3,000 a day, right? So take the low end even, 1,000 barrels. If one truck handles, off the top of my head, roughly 100 barrels, that's 10 trucks a day for that one well. And that means they're going to be drilling up to 16 wells on a pad. So 16 times 10 a day, that's 160 trucks a day for one pad, just using high-level math.
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'd ask one more question. And you know, we talk about daylighting and where we're going to have these. In one of the staff's pictures, it showed a Riverdale location for a testing facility. Can you give me an idea of what the size of that testing facility is and what the impact on, because it is very close to those homes and that off that road?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what that is, those are pig launchers and receivers. So all it is really is above ground piping that interconnects our systems together, one pipe to the other. And so it's a terminus of one pipe and the beginning of another. So all you're really going to see there is it's 50 by 50 or 100 by 100 foot site in which you just have some above ground pipe where we receive pigs from, take the pig out, put it in another trap, send it along the way. That's all we're doing there.
And is there a lot of mechanical activity, lighting? Is this a daylight operation?
Daylight.
Is it? Are there trucks involved? Is there waste material that is received and trucked out?
No tankage. I'm trying to think. It'd just mainly be pickups when we're pigging, coming in and out. But it's daylight only. It'd be very, very highly unlikely we would ever be there at night. There's no lights planned for the station either.
Any other questions, Commissioners? Commissioner O'Dorsio.
This is kind of more of a comment. What I'm seeing here is I appreciate the reduction of truck traffic. I think that's an important piece that Commissioner Tedesco brings up, and I think it's important for us as a county, as we look at these types of projects, to be able to articulate that to our constituents, that there's a reason why infrastructure sometimes helps protect other infrastructure. And that's what I look at this as. I also note, in the last time you came in front of us, I was particularly concerned that there's this, and it's unfortunately since that hearing, it's come to light that there is this big void of state standards for pipelines in certain areas. And we're trying to get through that with the flow line, gathering line rulemaking at the state, and then we're also concurrently doing that locally. I just want it to be noted that, again, in this particular case, we have in our development agreement standards that you guys are contractually agreeing to, which include the EPA standards 195 and 192. And while I don't think that's as much as I would like to see as far as a standard implemented at the state with monitoring and enforcement, I will note that it does provide me some level of comfort knowing that you guys and the staff have worked out that the standards will be followed in this case. So it's more of a comment than it is a question, but I appreciate that, both with staff and you guys working that out again.
And one comment to add to that, too. Even if the staff wouldn't have asked us to do that, we do build everything to 192 and 195. We exceed that. So there's not an issue with that at all. That's our normal operating procedure.
I guess the only question I would have would be for staff. What if the state standards regarding pipelines, actually, if the state actually steps up and starts doing more, how would that impact us here on this? Or would they be grandfathered in and just accountable to what exists in the existing agreement as of today?
Yeah, so the state rulemaking is really only on flow lines, so it would not impact. We don't anticipate it to impact this particular pipeline. So USDOT regulates this type of pipeline, and they're in fact already exceeding all of those federal standards in a lot of different ways. And so we don't anticipate the future rulemaking to affect this project, even because of not just because of the timing, but just because of the regulatory environment.
It's a different scope. Thank you for the clarification.
And I do have a little more information and follow up to Commissioner Tedesco's question earlier, if I may. The new well pad sites that we have either recently reviewed or anticipate reviewing in the coming months, the total well count on those in this corridor of the area where the pipeline's being permitted. The total well count's 137 wells. And, we think there's roughly another 200 to 300 existing wells in the area. So I think it would be easy to state that a minimum of 500,000 truck trips could be eliminated through the use of this pipeline.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. No, not
Madam
at all.
Chair. Per our regulations, the wells that are along the site, when we approve a well within 2 miles, I think our regulation says that it's included for that pipeline. Does that, help me understand, does that mean that after this pipeline is put in, that all these wells along here can immediately start connecting as with a approval or an agreement without it coming before, each one coming before the BOCC? Does that mean that they can just start making those agreements and those connections?
So they still go through a review process by the county. If it's under 10 inches in diameter and under 2 miles in length, it can be reviewed at the staff level administratively. We still do all of the same reviews that you heard about today, including impacts to drainage ways, impact to county roadways, right-of-way crossings, et cetera. So there's a number of permits and engineering reviews and submittals required by the county. The public hearing requirement is essentially triggered when it exceeds that standard of length and pipe diameter size. And in those cases, we would process conditional use permits and schedule them for public hearing, just as this pipeline is being considered today.
So there is a matter of oversight and locations of those pipelines, even though they are kind of in the process already.
Yeah, and I would say it's still a very rigorous review to make sure that there's no negative impacts to infrastructure, future development, natural resources, et cetera. But we did, through the MOU process, determine that some of that can be done at the administrative level.
At the same time, we still build everything to the same standards, too. Just to be clear on the record.
I wanted to add one thing, too, to address Commissioner Odorizio's concern about safety. All 3 of the development agreements also hold them to the requirements to meet federal safety standards regarding the PHMSA, the Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, holds them to minimum safety requirements at the federal level, too. So I just wanted to add that to try to provide you just another little bit of information on the safety of the pipeline.
At this day, I feel comfortable. I don't know where safety standards for environmental protections are going, but yeah, at this time, I feel comfortable with what you guys are doing.
That was a PSA statement from Commissioner Odorizio. All right. Any other questions? All right. I see none. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's been a long time since we've had you in the room, and I now know what a pig is. Appreciate that. It's not what I eat. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in regards to this? Erica, I can't see you, but do you have anyone signed up?
I do not.
Okay, we might want to take the map down now. Yeah. Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in regards to the Discovery Boardwalk Pipeline Project? Okay, I see none. Can I have a motion, please? Commissioner Odorizio.
Madam Chair, I move for the approval. Can we do all 3 of these together?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just make sure I get the numbers correct. And are the findings of fact and the conditions the same on all 3? Okay. Thank you. So for cases RCU 2017-11, RCU 2017-17, and RCU 2017-19, I move for approval of all 3 of these cases based on 33 findings of fact and 1 condition. Did you remove one of those, did you say? So is it 1 condition or 0? It's the 1 condition that used to be 2. That's it, based on 1 condition.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second. Commissioner Odorizio?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge? Aye. Commissioner Hanson? Aye. Commissioner Tedesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Henry?
Yes. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, what's our next case? You're back, Chris. Or you're not back? It's not back yet. He's about to be back. He's back. Different kind of energy.
Yeah,
The
different
kind I
type of
like.
energy.
No offense, guys.
This is the Kiowa Solar Energy Project. It's case number RCU 2017-28. This is a request for a conditional use permit to allow a solar energy project. So the applicant in this case is Kiowa Solar LLC. It's a subsidiary of Dewey Inc. The electricity generated from this project connects to an existing Intermountain Rural Electrical Association, or IREA, substation that's located just to the west of the site. This facility can produce approximately 80 megawatts of power. Here's the site and the surrounding area. So it's these parcels highlighted in the light blue. It's located southwest of 56th and Highway 79. Also over here to the west is Converse Road. You can see that most of the surrounding uses in the area are for agricultural. There are a variety of single-family homes located on larger lots over here. I'll talk about those in a minute. As part of the overall development, they've included enhanced landscaping and a larger setback for the solar panels. The town of Bennett is located down to the south, and then it's about 4.7 miles east of Front Range Airport. So the zoning for the site and surrounding area is A3, or Agricultural 3. That calls for parcels of land that are 35 acres or greater in size. It's primarily used for farming, but also single-family homes. So the use of the solar panels here on these properties will keep them as one large, cohesive property. Here's a closer view then of the comprehensive plan for the site and surrounding area. It's designated as agricultural, and so those parcels aren't expected to develop soon. Calls for farming and related activities, and it does call for preserving large tracts of land. In terms of the conditional use permit approval criteria, there are 8 of them. Has to be permitted in the zone, consistent with our regulations, compatible with the surrounding area, addresses any off-site impacts, has a functional layout, and adequate infrastructure to serve the needs of the facility. This is the overall site plan for the facility. Up to the north is 56th Avenue. Highway 79 is located to the east. At least along 56th Avenue, they have a 1,600-foot buffer that the property owner will continue to farm. Over here on the side, they have increased the setback of the solar panels, almost doubled it from what they originally proposed to 250 feet from the center line of Highway 79. Overall, it's an 800-acre site. 600 acres would be used for solar. It's approximately 275,000 panels. In terms of our development standards, the maximum allowed height for solar panels is 15 feet. They're proposing them to be around 7 feet in height. They have to meet all the minimum setbacks for the zone district, including a 50-foot front setback, 120-foot section line road setback, 10 feet on the side and 20 on the rear. Their proposed site plan shows that they meet all of these setback requirements. In terms of development standards and regulations, they are proposing some fencing and screening. The entire site would include a 7-foot tall chain link fence around the perimeter. The east side, they're proposing to coat the fence with a black vinyl material to soften the visual impact. They'll also do farming activities in front of the fence, but they're also doing additional landscaping in front of the fence, and I'll show you what that will consist of in just a second. In terms of the referral comments, we didn't have any concerns from referral agencies. Property owners, originally we only had, I think it was 3 comments, but after the Planning Commission hearing, or during the Planning Commission hearing, we had a petition submitted, so ultimately we got up to about 29 people in opposition. And concerns included loss of agricultural land, visual impacts primarily on that east side relative to some existing single-family homes, and they were concerned about the valuation of property values. We'd also received a referral comment from the Anadarko Petroleum Company wanted to make sure that there was a surface use agreement in place. Division of Wildlife had provided comments about preserving any potential wetlands or wildlife habitat, but they had no concerns after reviewing the site plan. They've actually gone out and done a site inspection as well, and based on all of these things that they've done, they don't have any concerns with the proposed site plan. This is the new site plan that shows the landscape buffer that would be included on the east side of the property. It's about 4,700 feet in length. It's designed to screen the homes to the east. Here's a closer view then. It'll include approximately 141 trees. That exceeds the minimum requirement for the county code. We require 1 tree for every 40 linear feet. They're including about 1 tree for every 30 linear feet. and it'll include over 1,700 shrubs. And every 100 feet or so, the landscaping will look like what you see on the screen, to include 3 trees and a bunch of trees, including some landscape-type berming. They have their future road dedication. They could also farm in front of this as well. This is sort of what the existing conditions look like looking west from Highway 79. That represents what the improvements would look like. I'll just kind of bounce between them real quick. You can see the black in the background of the solar panels. Then there would be the vinyl coated fence, and then the landscaping in front of that. Excuse me. These are different pictures in the area. This is looking south on Converse Road. This is on the west side of Converse Road. You can see the existing Victory Solar facility that was approved not too long ago. That is the existing substation that this solar facility will connect into. This is a view looking east on 56th Avenue. This is the north side of the facility, and this is looking at the buffer area in the front of the property there. This is southeast into the site, looking across the buffer area towards where the solar panels would be located. And that's just looking west at the existing Victory Solar facility. It'll look pretty similar to what you see there, except that on the east side, we'll have that enhanced landscaping plan. That's a little hard to see, but that's the existing Victory Solar facility that shows the applicants have gone through and had that entire site mowed and the weeds trimmed. This is looking north on Highway 79, so this would be on the east side of the facility. So looking along this area will include the increased setback. They're proposing to be double from the center line of the road on what they originally had. It will include potential ability to do some farming, landscaping, and then the enhanced fence to screen the view from the residents on the east side of Highway 79. So that's looking directly west across the site towards the existing Victory Solar facility way over there on the west side. So in terms of our Planning Commission hearings, the Planning Commission had 2 hearings, one on September 14th and then the final one on September 28th. At the September 14th hearing, action was continued because of neighborhood concerns. There was a petition that was submitted at the Planning Commission hearing. People were concerned with landscaping and screening of the facility relative to where they live. They're concerned about the upkeep of the other solar facility. They're concerned about impacts on wildlife and just general opposition that they didn't want this facility near their homes. The applicants had responded. They held another neighborhood meeting on September 21st. They proposed the landscaping plan for the east side that I previously outlined. They also moved the panels 250 feet from the center line of Highway 79, doubling the setback that they originally proposed. They performed an avian habitat analysis on the property as a whole. That analysis determined that it was poor habitat for birds, but however, prior to any construction, they need to do environmental biological studies to make sure that there aren't any impacts. They've committed to do that prior to building permit. They talked to the Victory solar site folks, had that mowed, and ensured that they come up with a better maintenance plan for that so that they don't receive zoning violations in the future for the weeds. The staff determination is the request, and the proposed use of the property is consistent with our development standards, our comprehensive plan. It's compatible with the surrounding area. Planning Commission and staff are recommending approval. It's based on 8 findings, 3 conditions precedent, and 10 conditions. And that concludes the staff report. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner Hansen.
So when I see this stuff way out in the Eastern Plains, I worry about the landscaping and irrigation. So how are they going to keep those plants from dying?
Right. So that was a concern that we have addressed also in our conditions precedent and our conditions. I'll just highlight those real quick. Hopefully that'll answer any questions. In terms of our conditions precedent, they're required to do road dedications. They have to submit the surface use agreement with Anadarko. They have to do the environmental and biological study of the site and comply with all state and federal requirements for wildlife protection. There's an expiration date. They have to install landscape in accordance with the submitted landscape plan. And it locks them into using the black vinyl coated fence. They have to remove the solar panels unless they get an extension once it expires. If they don't establish the use with the building permit within 1 year.
You're not answering the question. How, I get the fact that they're required
Okay.
to install landscaping. Thank you for all that information, but it was in the presentation, and I heard it the first time. What exactly are they doing to ensure that the plants don't die?
There's
I mean, this is
several-
out on the eastern plains on Highway 79. It doesn't rain much out there. So are we putting in drought-resistant plants? Is it going to be other kinds of landscaping? Is it going to be irrigated from a well? What is it?
Yes, there's several things we'll do. We're requiring that they submit collateral to make sure that they're established for 2 years. There's a variety of things in terms of conditioning that requires the percentage of living material that has to be established after 2 years. We also require that they do the manual application of watering during that 2 years to ensure that it's well established. And then
Well,
they have,
why don't the applicant just answer the question?
When he comes up. Okay. Any other
Commissioner
questions,
Hanson?
commissioners? Commissioner Tedesco.
I'm kind of going to follow up on what Commissioner Hanson was saying, and really kind of one of the issues that I have with the landscaping is, as we saw with the other solar farm, they were able to bring a tractor in and kind of mow everything down in one swoop, just kind of drive through and mow it down. Now you're adding trees, shrubs, bushes. I think what I'd like to hear is, how do you address maintaining that? Because then they get overgrown with weeds, they get overgrown, and you're watering, and it creates a whole nother avenue of concern. Because we go out there, and yes, I did see on there that after the first growing season, you have to have 50%, but that means 50% of everything out there is already dead. So, I think there's some legitimate concerns about what we're requiring, why we're requiring it, and does it make sense in what we're asking? And I think not only for staff, but I think from the applicant to answer those, because I think that's one of the issues that the neighbors are saying is that, look, you approved this other solar farm, and yet it didn't get cleaned up or it didn't get maintained until you applied for another solar farm. So how do we address that?
So I think that's probably an applicant's question unless you have an answer,
I do
Kristen.
have a little bit. From
Okay.
the staff point of view, we did not recommend landscaping on this application, to be honest with you. We went to the Planning Commission with no landscaping recommended whatsoever. And we had a lot of opposition to the project and specific requests from the neighbors directly across Highway 79 for landscaping. So the applicant prepared a landscaping plan that is drought tolerant. In addition, they've proposed to manually apply water, so trucking in water is the plan for 2 years. And we have proposed standards that if the landscaping does not survive, that the applicant's responsible for replacing it with living landscaping. So for us, we've proposed this as a compromise in order to address the visual impacts of the site plan in response to the neighbors' concerns.
Okay. Any other questions for the staff? Okay, I actually have a question. Why is Anadarko concerned about the surface agreement?
So the letter they submitted indicated they wanted to maintain their ability to potentially get to the minerals that are under the surface of the site. So what they had suggested was that they wanted to make sure they reached a surface use agreement with the applicant to ensure that they can get to those minerals. And so we'd included a condition that they present a copy of that recorded agreement to us.
The shame that the industry didn't do the same in Broomfield. Oh, sorry, that was a PSA announcement. Okay, any other questions for staff? Commissioner O'Dorisio.
Sounds like we got the why, and to determine how we got to the what. Now I want to still hear the how. How is it going to be done? So I look forward to hearing that.
Hold off.
Yep.
They'll address it.
That's right.
Hang on. All right, would the applicant like to come forward? Obviously, they're ready to grill you.
I can't wait. Thank you, Commissioner Henry, for the ringing endorsement ahead of time. Thank you, Commissioners, for having us here today. And we feel at UV as a company that this represents a positive enhancement to the area north of Bennett and possible good economic development opportunity. A little bit about us before we get into the landscape dynamic that is of primary concern. UV is located in Boulder. We're a Colorado company. We have a German parent company, which explains our strange name and the pronunciation of it. As Chris had said, I think he said Dewey, and so it's a common misconception on how to say it. We, even in our own office, we say it wrong. So if you say, "All right, you from Dewey," that's fine. Anyway, we have constructed several facilities across the country, including the Victory site, which is adjacent to our proposed facility. To address the concern as far as the maintenance issue, we did have a maintenance problem. That was an unfortunate coincidence that, yes, we're applying for a new potential project, and our existing project had weed problems. And that goes back to the owner of the project. We are no longer the owner of the project. As a developer, we're essentially a construction company, and we don't have the balance sheet to hold on to a $100 million facility. These are owned by large utilities. So, for example, Victory Solar is owned by Duke Energy, and they have specific requirements for landscapers. And we had the hardest time finding a landscaper that would agree to Duke's requirements. Safety requirements, essentially, is what they are. Finally, we found one. They're not even in Colorado. Unfortunately, we couldn't find a Colorado landscaper who would abide by the safety requirements. But we now have one, and going forward, we will utilize their services, and potentially those would be the services that would be utilized for the proposed Kiowa Solar. We don't know who the eventual owner of Kiowa Solar will be. It may be Duke Energy. It may not be. We may not be the operations and maintenance contractor. We happen to have been selected by Duke after we developed Victory Solar. We were selected to be the operations and maintenance contractor, and we hope to be that same company for the proposed Kiowa Solar. So we hope to be the company in charge of maintaining the landscaping. To address your concerns, Commissioner Hanson, regarding watering, as well as Commissioner Tedesco, it is the high plains. It's tough. It's a tough growing environment for sure, which is why we didn't take this upon ourselves to say, okay, the neighbors want some substantive landscape screening, to come up with a plan. We hired a professional landscape architect who has experience on the eastern plains and the growing conditions of the plains, Kimley Horn. And unfortunately, they couldn't be here today, but the plants selected are plants that are native to the American West, to our climate. We know that even under the best conditions, with the best plants that are selected for this area, it can be tough. We will be obtaining water. In a possible source for the water will be the landowner, Mr. Smilek himself. That water will be trucked to tanks on site. The tanks will flow into a drip system, and we will be obligated, as Chris notes, to maintain a certain percentage of plant life over the course of the first couple years of the project and going forward.
Commissioner Hanson?
I'm not sure why we're requiring landscaping at all. That is a ridiculous requirement. I appreciate your willingness to work with neighbors, but I mean, you know, first of all, I don't think that's a long-term solution, right? I mean, eventually somebody's going to stop doing it because it just is a big hassle, and it's just going to go bad. And in my opinion, bad landscaping looks worse than no landscaping. And, you know, in addition to that, I'm not sure that, you know, using water for those purposes out there so that, you know, solar farm can have 50% of their plants survive over 2 years is a good use of water resources in a water-starved environment anyway. So I'm sorry you had to spend the resources to hire a landscape architect, you know, to do all of that. But my personal opinion would be to remove that requirement. Now, maintenance is a different thing, right? And a fence is a different thing. That's something that can, you know, be addressed and needs to be addressed. But the idea that there would have to be living plant material out there on tanks that, you know, I would be curious what the landscaping looks like for the neighbors that are complaining, you know. I suspect yours would be better because it's a drought, you know, it's an arid environment. You know, that's what it is. and you don't have a municipal water supply out there that provide pipe. It just doesn't make any sense. And so I would certainly be in favor of removing those requirements. That was his original staff recommendation anyway.
It was, and we did opt with that, as Patty had alluded to. Our first plan.
Patty, but that's okay. Chris,
Oh,
sorry.
Christy,
I didn't
sorry.
even
Yeah, you
know
guys
there.
need to put the signs down. Yeah, yeah,
Not trying
yeah,
to
yeah.
pretend I'm someone.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Wouldn't have known.
Anyway, originally, Christy Patty had alluded to that we didn't have a landscape plan. It was recommended by staff that we not have a landscape plan, and the landowner, Dennis Smilik, had kindly offered to continue farming in that strip. Originally, the strip was going to meet the standard of a 120-foot setback from the center line of Highway 79. After the public reaction from neighbors and what happened during the first Planning Commission hearing that we had a second neighborhood meeting. We hosted a neighborhood meeting prior to even going before the Planning Commission, just as an option to garner public opinion of the project. Then we had our first Planning Commission hearing. After the first Planning Commission hearing, we wanted to assuage the grief of the neighbors by installing landscaping. We had a second neighborhood meeting, presented that with a professionally rendered landscape architectural plan. We moved the setback from 120 feet to 250 feet, so we more than doubled the setback. And that's how we came here today.
Okay. Commissioner Tedesco.
I'm going to have to agree about the landscaping on the side with, the 250. Personally, I think that the 250, if you continue farming it the way that it was originally being farmed, and you can keep that going, I think that would be great. The other option that I would think that we could explore is if the neighbors in that area are concerned about landscaping and visual aesthetics, if there's a way to work out a fund for adding to their landscaping where they have the responsibility of keeping it on their side, I think that would be a better solution. That way you're addressing their needs. It's something that's personal to them on that side. They have the responsibility of taking care of it. I don't know how that works or what that looks like, but for me, it addresses both the concern of the neighbors and the responsibility and the look and maintenance of the other side. You're already going to put in or you've already agreed to put in those trees and plants or whatever, so maybe you just say this is the amount that's available for the neighbors across if they care to do that.
I understand that process, and we have actually we've gone that avenue before with a different project in a different location. We also don't want this project to be held back from an approval today, hopefully.
Right.
And if that would do so, because there's not neighbors here and we'd have to have a legal agreement, essentially, it's almost not feasible. Yeah, it's a great idea.
It's funny because you had a staff member going.
Yeah, I know.
Commissioner O'Dorisio.
When I look at the map of where this is located, and when I look at the map of where this thing is located, and then I also look at the long-term plan for Bennett's comp plan, I mean, I can see that eventually this won't be in middle of nowhere. It's part of Bennett's growth boundaries eventually, and it's going to be part of the town. And so when I look ahead and I think of all the times where we said, oh yeah, right now it's in the middle of nowhere, and we don't have standards for aesthetics, but it'll come, and it will matter in the future. But I am also sensitive to the fact that maybe right now it's not the time for greenscaping, but are there other hardscape type of things that can help with aesthetics? I see that one of the things that I like is that the chain link fence that you're looking at is at least vinyl coated. That's at least a start. But are there other options for fencing that might be help allay some of the concerns of neighbors and the growing community out there for aesthetics that might serve kind of in lieu of greenscaping?
There are other types of fencing. Again, at this juncture, it's almost a little bit too late to make a change in fencing since we've agreed to a vinyl-coated chain link fence. That's as one of the conditions on the east side. So to to cost another fence and have it suffice to the neighbors' concerns, I'm not certain if that would be the avenue that we can pursue at this time.
Are you saying you'd rather commit to the landscaping that we're kind of agreeing may not be necessary and keep the fence as is rather than try to maybe up the aesthetic condition of the fence?
Of simply the fence, no landscaping and only upgrade the fence beyond a chain link fence? Is that what you're suggesting?
The way I look at it is I agree with my colleagues that maintenance and weed mitigation and maybe an improved fence would be, and I'm saying and an improved fence would make more sense than the greenscaping where you're trucking out water for something that's going to die in 2 years. Now, I also recognize the fact that we're talking to somebody, this isn't your problem after you sell this place. So, I mean, your event horizon on where this needs to go is going to be somewhat limited compared to what I'm looking at when I have this conversation with you. So I'm looking long term. And so when I look at something about what is the community of Bennett, what are the neighbors, they may get what they need with a better fence, and it may make more sense than to do what is currently being proposed with landscaping.
Okay. I'm not certain how that can be written, an improved fence beyond the fence that we propose. I do know that regarding Bennett's growth, we did take that into consideration, Bennett's future growth to the north. And part of their comprehensive plan, Chapter 4 of their comprehensive plan, lists a Section 4 that this is in, or Area 4. And this Area 4 is a possible industrial growth area in the future if enough water rights can be secured by the town of Bennett. So it's definitely a horizon that's quite a ways beyond our
I'm not as concerned about the water. That's what I'm getting at, is that there might be other ways.
What he's saying is the growth will most likely be industrial if they can find enough water for that growth to happen, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
And before we have staff try to figure out how to write that, let's make sure we have the support of the other commissioners in regards to that. So, a better fence. Does anybody else want to make a comment on that or have an opinion on that?
So it would be eliminate landscaping, augment the fence.
I would ask staff to weigh in because we deal with these types of design issues all the time.
So one option would be to change the wording on condition number 3 that specifically makes reference to a chain link fence and perhaps insert words that might be something like enhanced material to be approved by Adams County prior to building permit. And, one of the options would be wrought iron, but I wouldn't want to specifically limit them to something like that. If there are other materials that are higher and better than chain link, that they might be able to research and present to us. So rather than tie that into the approval, I would suggest that we make reference to enhanced fencing materials in condition number 3.
Commissioner Tedesco?
No.
Oh, Commissioner Hanson?
I don't know what the purpose of that is. Are you trying to increase screening or just make it look better?
Make it look better. Because that's the whole purpose of the aesthetics and the landscaping. According to what we heard on the record today, that was presented, and the reason why what we heard was Planning Commission and neighbors were concerned about aesthetics. And if there's a way to improve that, that's more reasonable than trucking in water and then have it die after 2 years and then nobody's on the hook. And no offense, but I'm looking long term, and you've already showed us that when you're done with this project, it's somebody else's problem. So that's why this conversation is looking further out.
Commissioner Tedesco, you had a comment or question?
I do. I think this is more for staff than it is. I appreciate everything you're saying today. I do. I think it's interesting that you're telling us that we're making the decision and it's too late to change anything. I don't think it's ever too late to change anything. And, that kind of gives me you're either going to do it like this or you're not going to do it at all. That puts me in a difficult position. I'm trying to mitigate what we can and can't do. This isn't the first time we've been on this rodeo. This isn't the first time we've had problems, not with you, but with others. And so we're trying to figure out what is the best road forward. So my question for staff is that obviously we've gone through a lot of trouble to, design the fence, make the fence what it is. I don't know that at 250 feet, upgrading a fence is going to make a huge difference. 250 feet is a long distance away. It would be minimal at best. But my question would be is that we in other areas do cash in lieu of based on the cost that was appropriated or came up with that it would cost to do the landscaping. And would it be amenable to anybody, whether the board or the staff, that you've already done the work on what it would cost for all of this, keeping the fence in place, the cost in lieu of for the 2 years, the maintenance, the planting, everything, and taking that fund and using that fund in a cost in lieu of like we do in other areas where it has to be used in that area to mitigate the neighbors' concerns. That's what I'm trying to get at. Is there a way that we address the issues that the board has, address the issues that the neighbors have, while still holding the builder and the developer accountable for what they've agreed to?
So I'm only aware of us doing that one time prior, and let me just tell you some of the differences and why I might have some concerns about this particular application. It's certainly possible, and identifying the cost and accepting that cash in lieu is no problem. Where and how to spend it, I would find to be a little bit challenging in this particular instance. In the previous case that I'm thinking of, we did accept cash in lieu instead of landscaping, where landscaping wasn't appropriate on site. And we were able to take that and accept it and put it on Adams County property in another location. Without having an identified kind of sending location for this landscaping and also maintenance plans to make sure the landscaping, wherever it's being sent, will also be maintained, I would be a little concerned about us being able to appropriately spend the money on landscaping in a place to make sure it would be maintained.
Would that not be, if we did a cash in lieu of payment, that we could do a cash in lieu of payment? We know that the amount of money, and then there'd be a further policy discussion with the Board of County Commissioners as to how to utilize that.
I'm looking at Heidi on that one.
And then I think it's hard because we're losing some of the connection with the land use case at that point.
I guess I would question that. How is it losing connection with the land use case if we're stating that, we're utilizing the money, but only to mitigate in that area for those neighbors that are associated with that land use case?
Yeah, I think if that were the condition and we could identify something specific, I guess I'm just leery of saying we're going to collect money and then decide later how to spend it.
If the landscaping is only on the one side, right? It's not the entire perimeter of the property, right? We're only mitigating for those neighbors east of that facility. That's it. And so if you take a cash in lieu in payment, you would specify that would be the impact that money could be used for, is those neighbors on the east side. And, per my previous discussion would be, you don't have an ongoing maintenance of this landscape. You have a fund where if they wanted to put up a fence, that would be part of that fund, or if they wanted to put up more trees, it would be part of that fund. But the ongoing maintenance and care would be the responsibility of and I think that's a further policy discussion, because I'm talking from myself. I'm not talking for the rest of the board. They may be sitting over there going, yeah, just shut up. So.
Yeah, I think it's a possibility if we specifically said it would be for these particular properties, and then we would just have to figure out administratively how to do that. There'd be some type of a grant process or something to ensure that it was fair for all those neighbors who would be impacted. We just haven't done that before, so it would be kind of, but it doesn't mean we can't. I just want to make sure there's a connection to this development, and I think if it was the properties adjoining it, there would be a connection.
So I appreciate you saying we haven't done that before, but obviously we're having this discussion because of what we've done in the past hasn't worked. So maybe we need to do something that we haven't done before.
Okay, now we've had a suggestion of cash in lieu, we've had a suggestion of fence design, and we have it as is. Any other questions or comments, commissioners?
Yeah.
Commissioner Hanson.
I like Commissioner Tedesco's idea in terms of the cash in lieu. I'm probably more apt to say that that's a bigger policy discussion for how we handle it in land use cases in general. And, you know, after hearing what Kristen had to say in terms of how we might do it, it probably wouldn't be my first choice in this case just because we don't know how we would handle it yet. But I like the idea, so I wouldn't necessarily not support it, but I probably in this case would rather defer it for a future discussion. But you know, my personal preference would be to just remove the landscaping requirement at this point and leave it at that, and not worry about the rest of it. The fence I'm not as concerned about because I don't think you're going to gain that much in aesthetics if you have upgraded materials. I think the purpose is, you know, probably screening. And if you're talking about 250 feet with potential plant material from a farm in front of it, I mean, you're not going to see that anyway. I mean, what good does it do to have a really nice fence 250 feet away that nobody sees? So that'd be my personal preference. That's probably what I would offer. I don't know if we're at the point of offering a resolution at this point. I could certainly make a motion if you'd like me to do that.
I think Commissioner O'Dorisio first has a clarification question.
I think that's a valid point. Is the fence 250 feet back from the road?
Yes, and the original proposal by the applicant, as well as something they're still offering, is that there would still be crops that grow in front of the fencing to also add to the screening, which was presented at the Planning Commission. And I'll just say that was acceptable to staff. It was not acceptable to some of the neighbors, and they were quite vocal that night, which is how we ended up with the landscaping conditions.
I will amend. I'm trying to be sensitive to the issues of the neighbors and long-term outlook for Bennett. But you can't get much better 250-foot landscaping than agriculture as long as it's being done. So I'll support removal of the landscaping. I prefer to have the fence done, but if I don't have support from the board, it's not going to stop me in this case.
Okay. Commissioner Tedesco.
I just want to make a statement to the board. You know, I don't know that just giving up on the landscaping and giving it back as an option is my preferred way to move forward. I think that we should still try to address the needs of the residents that are there in a cash and lieu payment, you know, until further discussed. I think we need to keep that. I would prefer that we keep that on there just so that we could have that larger discussion and we don't lose out on this. They've already agreed that they were willing to put the money into it. I don't want to just throw it out for saying we're not going to address anything. I think that we should have at least an avenue to pursue with that. If we're not going to do the landscaping, which they've already agreed to, then let's keep that in the agreement. Maybe in a cash in lieu of payment, and we can figure out how to utilize it later.
Okay. Commissioner O'Dorisio.
So I'm hearing that so far we've got on the table, remove it and not backfill that with something, or do cash in lieu of, do enhanced fence in lieu of, or we keep in landscaping. And I think that I'm hearing that the first option, which is just removing landscaping, is something that Commissioner Tedesco doesn't want to do because it would be kind of disregarding what the neighbors were concerned about. I'd be okay with either keeping in the landscaping, enhanced fencing, or cash in lieu of, and letting the staff work on one of those three options as they see fit. Then we're not giving up on.
I appreciate the commissioner's sensitivities to the citizens that had shared their concerns, but I think also we're talking about one residence, am I right, that is facing this? Am I correct?
Yes,
there was a petition of 29 people, but this is just one citizen that's going to be impacted. Am I right?
There were initially 3 responses that we
Three.
received, 2 that were east of Highway 79 and 1 that was north of 56th. So 2
So
that were
3
directly
residents.
impacted.
Okay. Commissioner Hanson.
You know, I appreciate the being sensitive, and I like the idea of cash in lieu, as I said before. What I want to be really careful about in this particular case is we don't set an unfortunate precedent where a neighbor comes in and says, hey, I don't like this landscaping plan, but if you give me a bunch of money for my yard, I'm happy, you know? I'm not suggesting a lot of people would do that, but I think that's why you have to have a general policy about how you use it and where you use it and when you use it and when you do it and how much it is and all those kinds of things. Otherwise, you just end up with those one-offs. So that's why my preferred proposal is really just let's remove the landscaping and have a future discussion about, you know, how we handle these kinds of situations. So that's kind of where I'm at. I just want to throw that out as another thought.
All right. Any other questions? Commissioner Hodge, you've been really quiet. You know,
I'll make a motion if you want. I'll make a motion if you want.
Hanson,
Okay.
we're going to, if there were 3 people that were complaining in the original, only 2 of them will be satisfied by giving landscaping money. One of them's on the wrong end of the project.
Okay.
I vote with Commissioner Hanson.
Commissioner Hanson, you wanted to make a motion?
Sure, and you'll have to help me with the condition on the landscaping in terms of which one that it is, but if you could pull up the thing, because I don't have it right in front of me, but I'd move to approve RCU 2017-28, the Kiowa Solar Energy Project. I don't know how many conditions, and it's findings of facts, 3 conditions precedent, and I'm not sure which condition is the landscaping one that we would remove.
We would need to delete conditions 2, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
So we're moving 2, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So it would only be 3. It would only be 5 conditions then total.
Correct.
Move for its approval.
Do I have a second?
I would move to make a second, but I need to make a comment also.
Sure.
And that is that in removing those conditions, are we affecting how it's maintained?
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Just for point of clarification, my motion wouldn't want to remove, requirements for maintenance under the circumstances, like because of the issue that we had on the other one, but to just the requirement that they put it in landscaping. So
So it would not, our regulations all of our zoning regulations would apply to this site, whether they're named as conditions or not. We had one specific to the maintenance of landscaping. The removal of that would not eliminate their obligations to maintain the property in a weed-free condition. So I wouldn't worry about that.
Good. Appreciate that. And you seconded it, Commissioner Tedesco?
I will second it.
Okay. Very good.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Tedesco,
Yes.
Commissioner Odoricio,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodge,
Aye.
Commissioner Henry.
With pleasure, yes. Thank you. All right, is there anything else for land use? Oh, wait, I forgot to ask for public opinion. Yes. So, yeah, we already went through the vote, so can I go ahead and?
I think we should just ask to confirm on the record. if
Yeah,
there's-
on the record, is there anyone in the audience? I was just seeing staff and applicants, so is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in front of this? I see the applicant. Really, you want us to change our mind?
No, not at all. Thank you.
All right, I see nothing else, so we'll go ahead and adjourn at 11:29.
This is